In 2020, I think that people are going to find capital growth in real estate in all sorts of different places. And I think a lot of the growth markets are going to be in some of the smaller areas, the smaller capital cities, and some of the regional locations. It's going to be less about Sydney and Melbourne as the year rolls on and those markets start to level out. Some forecasters are tipping, for example, that Brisbane's going to lead on capital growth in 2020. But I think there's also going to be a lot of focus on regional markets. This week, the team is working on compiling the latest edition of Top 5 Regional New South Wales Hotspots. It's a market, very big state with lots of different markets, but there's plenty of growth happening in that market. Last year there were, and we expect that to continue in 2020. And one of the locations that we're going to feature in the upcoming edition, which we expect to complete before the end of the week, is the regional city of Orange in the central west of New South Wales, about 270 kilometres west of Sydney. So here's why we like Orange. And one of the things that we always look for in regional markets is economic diversity. We think that's incredibly important. When you're buying regional, you don't want to be buying in markets that are one-horse towns in terms of their economic dependence. You don't want to be buying in locations where it's all about the resources sector, for example, because that's very volatile and vulnerable to the cycles of the mining sector. Equally, you don't want to be buying in locations where it's all about agriculture, because periods of prolonged drought, which has been afflicting many areas of regional Australia in recent years, can make the local economy vulnerable and fragile, and therefore the local property market is unlikely to thrive. So we're looking for economic diversity, and we think the city of Orange and the central west of New South Wales, a few hours west of Sydney, is a great example of that. It's got a very diversified economy, which I'll speak about in a moment. It's got a growing population, it's got a great lifestyle factor, and compared to the big cities, very affordable. Currently the median house price is a bit over 400,000 and the median apartment price is about 260,000. Orange has become a popular weekend escape for people out of Sydney, but it's become more than that. It's a lot of people coming from the big city come to Orange, for example, maybe to study at Charles Sturt University or to gain work experience at the Orange Hospital. It's got a big medical sector in the city of Orange, or to work in one of the many government departments that are headquartered in Orange. So they come expecting to stay for a relatively short period, but they like it and they stay because they like the lifestyle and they like the fact that while they can earn similar comparable salaries to working in Sydney, the lifestyle is a lot more relaxed and the cost of living is much lower. I mean, houses are well under half what you pay typically in Sydney. So Orange has a lot of attraction for people out of the big cities, and increasingly it's drawing refugees from the city, and that's helping to drive its property market. So the first thing we always look at when we're looking at any location, particularly regional ones, is what's driving the local economy, because the local property market derives from that. And what we see in Orange is a high level of diversity, which is a key factor. Agriculture is very important, but it's not just about agriculture. Mining is also important because Newcrest Mining, which is the nation's largest gold mining company, has a big presence in the Orange area, but it's not just about that either. It's also about education, it's about health, community services, government services, lots of other things. There's a big wine industry in the area, for example. Tourism is big as well. The biggest employment sector is health. There's the Orange-based hospital, the Bloomfield Hospital, community mental health. So it's the biggest employer in Orange. There's been recent improvements and expansions to the local medical facilities, and that's an ongoing factor. Newcrest Mining is also a very big employer. It spent $2 billion developing the Cartier East gold mine, finished about 2013, and there's further major expansions of that coming up, totaling almost $1 billion as well. So that's going to be an ongoing factor in the Orange economy. Government agencies employ a significant number of local people. In New South Wales Department of Primary Industries has its headquarters in Orange, and there's also a number of other state government departments with a big presence in Orange. Education, with the Charles Sturt University campus and also the University of Sydney, has a School of Rural Health in Orange. So education is another major employer, an important part of the local economy. Orange is a well-known fruit growing area, and it's also got a very important and thriving wine industry. It has over 30 cellar doors in that region, and so that's led it to become a very popular food and wine destination for Sydney-siders looking for weekend getaways. It's also a freight hub. The Orange Airport's recently being expanded. Tourism's big, so there's just so many factors. That's why we like Orange so much. It's just one of those places that we think should always be on the checklist for investors looking for good places to buy affordably with good rental yields and prospects for steady growth. And this market has shown good growth in the last 12 months. In 2018, the Central West region, with Orange as one of the main centres, was the #2 area in New South Wales for housing price growth, according to CoreLogic. And more recently, Orange was named as one of the Central West areas that have outperformed several capital cities in long-term capital growth. So when we look at some of the major centres in that area, Orange is one, but we've also got places like Bathurst, Dubbo, Mudgee. They've all averaged sort of 5 or 6% per year on average over the past 10 years, and that's considerably more than has been achieved in capital growth by cities like Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth. So don't let people tell you that you've got to buy in the capital cities to get the best growth. Quite often, very often, good regional centres like Orange challenge those bigger centres for growth. And certainly in the last 12 months, Orange has been an outperformer, given that most of last year prices were falling in places like Sydney and Melbourne. There was uplift towards the end. So by the end of the year, they'd grown 4 or 5% for the year. Orange median house price grew 7% last year. In fact, it had 800 house sales in the city of Orange in 2019, which is the highest number of sales for any centre in regional New South Wales. So the median house price is now $420,000, up 7% in the last 12 months. Yields are still pretty strong, around 5%, much better than you'd get in Sydney. And just generally a very solid market, keeps on performing, steady growth, and averaging 5 or 6% per year over the last 10 years. And as I said, that's better than many of the capital cities. We always look at what's coming up in the future for any location that we consider to recommend to our customers, and because it's really about the future. What I've just told you describes the recent past, and that's all very safe and solid, but really it's about what's going to happen in the future. And there's a lot coming up in the future for Orange. There's a lot of infrastructure spending happening and more to come. Major developments happening. As I mentioned, the gold mine, the Cardi gold mine, is undergoing planning for 2-stage expansion, and those 2 stages are going to total well over $800 million. So that's going to be a big boost to the local economy. Probably the biggest thing happening in this area is the New South Wales government's plans to turn the Central West, which includes Orange, into a renewable energy zone, with a value on that investment of about $4.5 billion over time. So it's actually nominated 3 renewable energy zones throughout New South Wales, and the first one that's going to be kicked off is the one that includes Orange. It's going to attract a lot of private sector investment supported by the state government, creating thousands of jobs each year as that unfolds. There's also expansion of the medical precinct, the Bloomfield Medical Centre project. Is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. And the old Orange-based hospital, which is being now replaced, that's going to be transformed into a new home for various government departments, including the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries. So there's a lot coming up in the future of Orange, supporting the growth that we've already seen recently and which we expect to continue in 2020 and beyond. So it's a location worth considering. It's affordable, it's got good rental yields, and it's got a good track record of growth, and we expect what's coming up in this diversified and expanding economy that there's going to be more growth to be had. So you can go to the Hotspotting website and buy a copy of that orange location report. We're actually phasing out having individual location reports for sale on the website. The last chance to buy individual location reports will be Friday of this week, and to encourage people to take advantage of what we're calling our last chance sale to get individual location reports. They're being made available at a discounted price. You can actually buy 3 for less than the normal price for 2, or you can buy a single location report such as orange at a discounted price to what it was normally until recently. And also a reminder that tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, will be my live Q&A, which I hold once a month on a Wednesday evening. Your chance to throw your questions at me in the live format, such as this. Just key in your questions, the panel, and I'll do my best to answer them. Most of the questions are usually about locations, people asking about places they're thinking or contemplating buying in. What do I think of those locations? Or asking me about locations in which they already own real estate and wondering about whether there's growth happening in that market. So that's on tomorrow evening, the live Q&A around about this time. So don't miss that opportunity to throw your real estate questions at me. So that's Hotspot of the week for this week. The very important and thriving regional city of Orange in the central west of New South Wales. Bye for now.